There is nothing that our world trusts in like it trusts in money. There's nothing quite like the way that our world loves and obsesses over and pays homage to cash, to money in the bank. We are obsessed with money. We want more money. We want money. We love money. We dream about money. We obsess over money. We treat our money kindly. We're sweet to it. We want to live in a relationship with just more and more and more and more with money, because there may be many reasons. Maybe you just love the crisp feeling of a new dollar bill in your hand or something. But most of us, you do. You love that crisp, new, this is fresh from the bank. It just minted. I'm the first one. Wow, you sniffed it. You're incredible. Some of us have a multi-sensory relationship to money. Hopefully it stops with taste. Hopefully it just stops there. No, don't mind that. Most of us want more money because money leads to more of the other thing that it is that we actually want. We want more money because we think if we get more money, we'll get more of something else. More things, more status, more prestige, more belonging in the right social circle, more of whatever it is. And so we're all longing for more money. We're often lying about how much we're longing for more money. We often pretend like we don't want money, which is sort of an interesting thing, right? Because let's just all stop lying for a second. Everyone here wants more money. Right. Everyone here wants more money. Everyone does. But we go around kind of pretending like we don't. We go around sort of pretending like, oh, I just need like a little bit more, but it's not really about the money. It's about the, right? There's a famous pop singer who recently has written a song where he's protested about why he's doing what he's doing. And you all know the song. He writes, I don't have money on my mind. Money on my mind. I do it for the love, right? And we're all singing this. We're like, I don't have money on my mind. And some prophet would come to us and say, thou doth protest too much. But we're all saying all the time, it's not really about the money for me. We're all pretending. And it's so strange that we do that, isn't it? That we pretend that we're not really in it for the money, because we all know that in some sense we actually are. There's a part of us that actually is. And yet we sort of feel in some way that we can't really describe that there's this moral dimension around wanting more money. There's this moral dimension around feeling like we're needing more, or it's about just the money itself. And so that moral dimension sort of encroaches on us, and we all sort of pretend like it's about something else, or I don't really want more money. Why do we want more money? Why can we never get enough money? Why are we never done wanting more money? How do we stop needing more money? This is what we're going to be talking about today. I've titled today's sermon, A Life That Doesn't Need More Money. Hallelujah. A life that doesn't need more money. We're in the middle of a sermon series in the book of James. You can flip to the book of James right now. There are Bibles right there. If you don't have a Bible, you can always take one of the Bibles that are right there in the aisle. You can just take one and have it. But we need to open up the text of the Scriptures, so that we get comfortable opening up the text of the Scriptures, so that when we are alone and by ourselves and in our hour of need, we can remember, I'm not alone, God's already spoken to me, and we can open up the Bible and hear God speak to us. And so we practice that together by engaging with the Scripture physically in our services. So open up a Bible, open up something to James chapter 4. We're going to be in chapter 4, verse 13 through 5, verse 6. We're going to be in chapter 4, 13 through 5, verse 6. And we are walking through this sermon series, an expository sermon series, where we're just walking through the text of James over and over again, verse by verse, looking for the wisdom that God has to give to us today through the text of James. This is what we're doing. We're in James chapter 4, verse 13 through 5, verse 6. I will read the text to you aloud. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you, and you will eat your flesh like a fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned, you have murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. We all want more money. We all want more money. And there are at least 3 reasons identified in this text for why we want more money. We want more money because money promises us stuff. Money promises that it's going to give us certain things. If we get money, we'll get something from money along the way. So money makes us promises. And in this text, we see at least 3 promises that money makes to us about things that we'll get from money if we have more of it. One thing that money promises us is security. Money promises us security. The text says in verse 13, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there. Wow. What would it be to just have a peaceful, secure year? Just one block of time where we're not worried about this or that, where we're not having to scramble for this stuff, but just security over a chunk of time. We're all longing for security and stability and peace in our lives, aren't we? And money says, if you have me, if you have more of me, you'll have security. You can say, I'm going to be good and set and settled and secure for this year. So money promises us security. Money promises, however, something maybe more valuable than just security over a period of time. Money promises us control over the future so that we can have security over multiple blocks of time over and over again. Money promises us control over the future. Again, look at verse 13. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town. Right? The ability to predict tomorrow. Money says, if you have more of me, if you have more money, if you do things in order to get more money, you are going to be able to predict and control your tomorrow. And that is a very, very enticing thing to us. Everyone here wants to control their tomorrow. Everyone here wants to control tomorrow's tomorrow. We've got 1 week plans and 1 month plans and 3 month plans and 1 year plans and 3 year plans and 30. We're all longing to control and manufacture our tomorrows and our desired tomorrows. And money says, if you have me, you can control your tomorrow. You can be like these people in the text who get to say, today or tomorrow, I'll do this thing. And I know that I'll do this thing, whether it be today or tomorrow or the next day, because I have all this money. And so I get to think like that because money lets me think like that. And money says, if you come to me, if you come and gather me up and hold me close, you'll get to predict your tomorrow too. You'll get to control your future. So money promises security. Money promises us control over the future. And money makes us feel like we're somebody. Money makes us feel like we did something right. Like we got something right. Like we accomplished something. Money makes us feel like we did better than that person over there who has less money. This is why James says in verse 16, as it is, in this way of behavior, as it is, you boast in your arrogance. Money makes us feel that sort of self-satisfied, self-congratulatory arrogance that comes from feeling like I collected all this stuff that other people wanted, and I got more of it, and so I feel good about me. So money promises you at least 3 things. It promises you security, it promises you control over your future, and it promises you the ability to feel like I've got something to boast in myself about. I've got something in myself to feel good about because I make this much money. I have this much money in my bank account. I get to talk about making a 6 or 7 or whatever, we're in Manhattan, figure salary. I get to say all these things that make me feel like I have something inside myself that is worth boasting about and worth being proud about. Now, in all of these things, money is really a master of the physical world. Money in this material world almost takes on the status of like a god. Because money, in promising you security, in promising you control over your future, in promising you a sense of yourself, money is making promises that really a deity should be making to you. Money is saying, I am the key that unlocks all the doors in this world that you live in. And if you have more of me, you'll have more of anything else that you want. This, incidentally, is part of why Jesus in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24 says these famous words. He says, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, we often think about this and sort of use God and money interchangeably in this text. We say, you can't serve two masters, you'll hate one, love the other. And so and the moral we take away from this text is you can only serve God alone. You can't have a second thing. But I think it's important here to note that Jesus says two masters and then explicitly picks money. Because money is a master. Money unlocks all the doors. Money gives access to everything else in this world that we look at as valuable or desirable. Jesus doesn't say, you can only serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and fruit. I don't know, pick something else. You cannot serve even something valuable. Like you can't serve both God and physical strength or something. We might value physical strength or physical attractiveness, but no one thinks that they unlock all the doors in life. But money unlocks every door in this world. Money unlocks every door. And so it takes on the status of a master of this world. Money is a master of this world. And as such, it comes to you promising things that only a master could possibly promise you. Security, control over the future, a sense of yourself and who you are. For these reasons, we are all tempted all the time to trust in money. There's arguably nothing so tempting, nothing that vies for our trust with such force as money does. But we know from experience, just from observing the world in our own lives, in other people's lives, that money doesn't actually deliver those things. We know from experience, we know from observation that money does not deliver those things. Money brings other things instead. And the text of James shows us at least three other things that money actually brings. It promises you security. It promises you control over your future. It promises you a sense of yourself. And instead it brings at least three other things. These are found in James chapter 5, verses 1 to 3. The first thing that money brings you is misery. It promises security and it actually brings you misery. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. The idea here is that these miseries are coming upon the rich precisely because they're rich. That there are certain miseries that come from having a large amount of money. And of course that is true. Because once someone has a large amount of money, once someone has a large amount of money, you all of a sudden have to keep all that money. You've got to protect all that money. And now you're anxious not just about having gotten the money, but now you're anxious about losing the money. And, have you ever noticed, what people do when they win the lottery? Like, people who win the lottery, what do they do when they go pick it up? Has anyone seen this? It's reported on the news in different places all the time. Someone wins the lottery, yes, George knows. They're like, the Mega Millions, whatever, has won the lottery, and here's the lottery winner. And they show a picture of the lottery winner holding the check, and the name is basically fake. The name is not the real name on the check, and they're wearing some mask or sometimes a bag over their face. They're like, I don't want anyone to know who I am. Why? Because if people in my life knew that I won the lottery, my life would be miserable. And so they hide. Think of another accomplishment in your life where you would want to go and stand up on the podium and hide yourself. But winning the lottery, getting a bunch of money is full of so much misery. It ruins so much. It has the potential to ruin so much in your life, in your relationships, in your time, in your mental health, in where you're putting your mental energy. It has the potential to ruin so much that people win millions of dollars and try to be as anonymous as possible about it. James says money brings misery and insecurity. The second thing that James says, it promises all these things, but instead it brings misery and it brings decay. Money decays. Chapter 5, verse 2, your riches have rotted and your garments are moth-eaten. I'm reminded now of a story that I heard of someone in the church who was cleaning out under their bed and they found moths everywhere that had eaten up a bunch of their rocks. Valuable things. This is the issue. Money and the valuable things that it buys, they decay. They're decaying immediately. I mean, anyone who's bought a car knows this. It's depreciating from the second you drive it off the lot. I was just on vacation in Cape Cod with my family, and we walked through these little shops that have these novelty things, you know, and my nephew, I got 3 nephews, and one of my nephews, he's big into, like, card collecting right now. And so he's like, I bought him, like, a pack of Pokemon cards, and, he's like, wants to get these cards. But as I'm opening it, he's like, Uncle Adam, you've got to hold them like this, right? You've got to hold them on the edge, because the second you come into contact with a collectible card, it begins to depreciate immediately. I mean, so he's like, he knows this, right? He's like 7, and he's like, you touch it, don't touch it. Just don't touch it. Touch it as little as possible. Thank you so much for buying that for me. Now you're done. Get out of the equation. Don't touch it, because it depreciates and it decays. I mean, even the things that we do in our society, the economic fictions that we have and the systems that we have about deciding worth over time and value and economic predictions, those fluctuate. Even the values of the systems that we use to try to make currency and money stable, those fluctuate. They fluctuate based on the news. They fluctuate based on how that other country's currency is doing. They're fluctuating and decaying all the time. And this is actually something that is in not just the way that we relate to money, it's deep in the nature of money, which is part of why we have trouble stopping in our lust after money. Because money is decaying, because we feel all the time like it's slipping through our fingers, we need more of it. We want more of it. And the primary category for us thinking about money that we have is not, some fixed amount. Once we get to it, we're done. I satisfied the requirements of money. What's the major category that we have when we think about money? The thing that we want over and over again. It's profit. More. That's what we always want with money. Just think about that for a second, right? In verse 13 of James chapter 4, right? Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. If there were just like a number that somehow we could get to it and then the drama of money is over, right? This whole thing would be so much easier. It would be so much better. It would actually have an end. But the challenge is that what we actually want with money is more. It's profit, and money makes us want more. Money's always saying, what you need from me is more, is profit. And so it's actually in the nature of money to keep us longing after it. Because there's no amount of money that you could ever get where suddenly money will say, you don't need to make a profit now. Money will always say, what you need is a profit. I'm about profit. I'm about more. And as a result of that, money doesn't just bring us misery. Money doesn't just bring decay. It doesn't just decay in itself, because its fundamental category is profit. And as a result, there will never be enough money to fill the money pit that's inside ourselves. Money brings a third thing. It brings destruction. Money brings destruction. It says in verse 3, your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. Your pursuit after something that is decaying and fading away witnesses against you and against your life, and that pursuit over time, like a fire, eats and consumes your life. This happens in extreme cases when people are literally addicted to getting more money, right? In some ways, it's maybe equitable to say that we're all on some level addicted to getting more money. But of course, there are people who struggle with addiction to money in financial fields, in gambling in particular. Studies have been done on the rates of suicide amongst addictions, all addictions. Like if you're addicted to this thing, your chance of suicide goes up X amount, right? Studies have been done on that. Gambling addiction is the number one addiction that you can have that multiplies your risk of attempting suicide. One study that I read in 2017 found that 1 in 5 people who have a gambling addiction are at risk for attempting suicide. A study in 2020 out of Sweden said that people who have gambling addictions are 15 times more likely to attempt suicide than someone who doesn't. The need for more and the chase after more becomes something that is devouring. And it doesn't just devour us in terms of the actual pursuit of money, because money is the key that unlocks all the other doors that this world has to offer. All of the fires of our desire that we're struggling to manage all the time are wrapped up in our pursuit of money. So sometimes someone can even have, ostensibly a fine relationship with money, but money means that they'll get this thing over here. And so now they keep pursuing it because they need this thing over here. And it just becomes a ravenous, consuming fire over and over again, where money either draws us into itself or money gives us the opportunity to be burned up by some other desire that money promises it will be able to give us. Money promises security, control over the future, promises that it will make you a somebody. Money brings misery, it decays, and you can never have enough of it. And it destroys lives. So everyone here is just going to get rid of all our money now. Now that we know the truth, we've seen the light, out it goes. I'd like to invite the worship team back up. No, Look, money is also a fact of the physical, material reality that we live in, right? You could be listening to this and you're like, okay, you're telling us all the things that are bad and awful about money. We get it. But I have to pay my rent. Food at the grocery store is not getting any cheaper. We have all these realities, right? And they're pressing. They're pressing all the time, every day, especially in a place like this. In June, this past June, Manhattan rents hit record highs for the third time in 4 months. The median rent now for a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan is $4,400, and the average rent for all apartments in Manhattan is $5,500. Right? Which probably, given the fact that this is the most expensive city in the world, right, probably means that if you are trying to pay for rents here, Clint, can you scoot in on one seat there? We've got 2 seats right down here. They're just for you. Perfect. Thank you for joining us. Probably means, right, that if you're paying rent here in Manhattan, I mean, you are fighting more than anybody else in the world to pay your rent check, right? I mean, just in terms of just raw expense, right? And so you're looking at this and you're like, okay, you need to tell me something else, Adam, than just bad things about money. I get it. I get it. We're going to get there. Money is a reality, and it has to be handled with wisdom. And we have real things in our lives that we have to handle financially. What we need is a better relationship with our money, a different relationship with our money. Something that makes our relationship with money not just about the dollars and cents and numbers in the bank and how much we're getting paid, but it makes it about things that are about spiritual truths, things that are about our character, things that are about our relationships. We need a new relationship with money where we're handling our money with wisdom and the things that we have to do in this physical financial reality, but we're not run and controlled by them at the same time. We need a different and better relationship with money. And if we could just really meet our needs, our physical needs, and then stop, that would be a great start. That would be a wonderful start to having a new and better relationship with money. But of course we can't. We know that we can't. We've tried that. We've been like, okay, I'll try to set limits, I'll budget, I'm going to really just figure out what are the bare minimums. And we just know this money somehow keeps coming back up in our lives over and over and over again. And there may be a number of reasons why it's hard for us to stop. It's hard for us to just know that we need to have a different relationship with money. But one reason why this lusting after money keeps coming up in our lives is that the pursuit of money itself corrupts us and makes us want to pursue it more. Money doesn't just have physical implications in our lives, it has spiritual implications, it has immaterial implications in our lives. And as we lust after money over and over and over again, we become people who are willing to do more and more to continue lusting over money. And it becomes harder and harder to stop. More money corrupts us into the pursuit of more money. We see this in James chapter 5, verses 4 to 6. James is writing to first century Jewish believers in the Messiah, Jesus, and he's writing to good church people. He's writing to people who are like, I'm showing up for God, I'm showing up for my community, I have every intention of doing good and being good, and yet James rattles off 3 things right in a row here, where like to us as readers, we go, these people are not good. They're bad people. They're people who are corrupted in the pursuit of their money. And so they find themselves doing things and justifying things that they otherwise never, ever would have done. These are found in James chapter 5, 4 to 6. The first thing is that out of the guarding of their money and the clutching to their money, they steal. It makes them thieves. They steal from other people. Verse 4, behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your field, which you have kept back by fraud, are crying out against you. And the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. We guard our money and clutch to our money, and it makes us withholding from other people. At worst, it makes us actually steal and rob other people of what should be theirs because we need more for me. A second thing is that they become gluttonous. The pursuit of more money, because money never has an end, money always wants us to get more, that becomes a spiritual dynamic where we become spiritually gluttonous. We spiritually always need more. Verse 5, you have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. And we spiritually just never have enough. And so we fill up more and more and more and more and more, and the diminishing returns just pile up over time. So we go back for more and more and more and more money and more things and more of what we can get from other people. Finally, the corruption that the pursuit of money has wrought on its community makes them fundamentally immoral and unable even to distinguish between right and wrong and good and evil. It says, you have condemned, you have murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. This community, through their pursuit of worldly riches, has even lost their basic moral compass and is willing and able to do wrong and evil to a righteous person. In all of these things, money underneath it is making these people and makes us forget some fundamental truths about who we are and who God is and what's going on in this world. James says in chapter 4:14, right, his rebuke to these people who are lusting after money, he says, you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? These people have forgotten that their life is full of weakness and contingency and things that are outside of their control, and no amount of money is going to be able to fundamentally change that. James says, you've forgotten who you are and your place in this world. For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Money makes us forget what is real. Money corrupts us so that we act like people who believe that getting more physical stuff is what the world and life is all about. But that's not real. That's not real. And one of the major messages of the Bible is that this world and this time and the things that govern this world and this time are passing away, and that the world of God is encroaching on us even now. James says this in verse 5, chapter 3. Right? He's got 2 moments in chapter 5 where he critiques their pursuit of money because it doesn't fit the time that they live in. Did you notice that? Verse 5, chapter 3. You have laid up treasure in the last days. The last days of what? The last days of the way that this world and this time operates. And as a result, the last days of the sway of money. We're in the last days of the sway of money. Verse 5, you have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. James says this time is a time where people are experiencing significant loss and significant misery and death and destruction. And in that time, you have the gall to be searching after as much money as you can so you can fill yourself up, so you can feed your gluttony. The logic in both of those verses is that it doesn't fit the moment that they live in. Right? It's like setting up for a picnic outside, even though you know it's about to rain in 15 minutes. Right? It's like, I don't know, what else is it like? What else is it like? It's like traveling on a vacation when your wife is 5 weeks away from giving birth. It's doing something that doesn't fit what is immediately about to enter into reality. It's such that it doesn't fit. It doesn't make any sense. James says this world and the way that it is mastered by money, it is in its last gasping, dying breaths. And as a result, we see these feverish signs of the increase of the love of all these physical, valuable, decaying, corroding things because it's in its last feverish moment. But the world of God is coming. And the world of God is a world that doesn't corrode and it doesn't decay. It doesn't pass away. It's eternal and it's lasting and it's valuable. It's really valuable. It's truly valuable. And no amount of money in this world can purchase even a single golden gravel piece from the streets that line the kingdom of heaven. And no amount of money in this world could buy for someone any 30-minute audience with the King of Kings. And no amount of money in this world could purchase for someone a single drop of water from the river of life that flows there. No amount of money in this world could possibly be exchanged for any of the marvelous, miraculous, eternally good and glorious things that are coming for all of us in the kingdom of heaven. There is one thing. There is a currency. There is a cost. There is something that needs to be paid. There is a high cost to enter into God's world of spiritual reality, and the only currency that matters is the blood of Jesus. This is why it says in 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 18 to 19, "For you know that God paid a ransom to save you from the empty life that you inherited from your ancestors. And it was not paid with mere gold or silver, which lose their value. It was the precious blood of Christ, the sinless, spotless Lamb of God." At its best, money in this time can be for us a physical sign of the cost of spiritual reality. At its best, it's a physical sign and remembrance that it does cost something to enter into the utterly valuable world of God. And it can then be a sign to us that God paid that cost for us in his son Jesus. At its worst, however, it's exactly the opposite. Money is so pernicious. It's so pernicious because there is a cost to be paid to enter into life with God. And when we trust in physical currency instead of the spiritual way that God has made and provided, it's an outward sign of an utter rejection of everything about God and the world and the life that he offers us. This makes Jesus' words so true. You cannot serve both God and money. We need more of God, not more money. Our relationship with money, whether we get more of it or less of it, would be healed if we got more of God into our relationship with our money and less money in our relationship with our money. We need more of God and not more money. James says in chapter 4:15, he says, instead, in opposition to, instead of all this stuff that we can pursue and are lusting after money, instead what we should say is, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. Our life is hidden in God, and it is given to and under the will of God. And God makes us able. God is the one who makes us able to do this or that, to live, to do this in today or tomorrow, to plan for the future. And we need to bring more of God into all of those things. And if we did that, we would maybe have 3 opportunities for how we could live in a new relationship with our money. The first thing is this. The first is that even in our money, we can recognize that growing in God and not growing in our financial profiles is what life is actually about. Life is actually not about accumulating money. It's about growing in God. And our finances, whether we have much or whether we have a small amount, is that context, can be that context within which we grow in relationship to God. Money then can be a context for growing spiritually. If we're pursuing money on money's terms, we will never, ever, ever have enough money. We'll never get to the point where we just defeat that need for profit that's inherent in money and be done. But what we can say is that the money that we have and the financial situations that we have become contexts within which we can get more of God, regardless of what happens with the money that we have. Now look, this doesn't mean that there aren't times when we need more money. It doesn't mean that there aren't times when it's right on the surface to pursue some higher salary or some saving or some wise investment, right? The laborers in verse 4, right? Did you watch that? Chapter 5, verse 4? Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, they're crying out against you. The wages of them are crying out against you, right? This is a situation for them where God's like, it's good that you would get paid. It's good that you would get your money, right? I'm not trying to say this is all about just, throwing all our money away. Or that God doesn't use it in our lives when he gives us financial blessing and abundance. The point is that whatever situation that we're in, that can become a context and a situation within which God grows us up in relationship to the money that we have. The second thing, beyond just seeing that money can be a context for the way that we spiritually grow, is that money is an opportunity to grow in wisdom. Money is an opportunity for spiritual growth. Money is also an opportunity to grow in wisdom and in practical wisdom for living in the world. Sometimes this looks as simply as like living within our means. Living within our means is an opportunity to grow in wisdom and to grow spiritually. The world that we live in gives people all sorts of opportunities to pretend like we don't have to live within our means. Right? All sorts of opportunities. Many of them are frankly financially predatory. Right? Helping people who don't know what they're doing or are in a difficult situation in life or who are just frankly young to borrow large sums of money to keep doing something that wisdom would say what you actually need to do is wrestle down that desire for a time and live within your means. Money is actually an opportunity for us to grow in that kind of wisdom. Where when we have certain things happening in our lives where we think, I don't want to be limited by this, we can accept those limits and instead say, I'm going to grow in wisdom and I'm going to grow up spiritually in God. There's some really practical things here. Like I just mentioned, there are many smarter people than I am when it comes to economics and finances and money. I personally have a more conservative posture towards my own money. Like credit cards. You know that Americans are just drowning in credit card debt? You know that, we are. We are drowning. And really, we're collectively drowning in credit card debt because some of us are individually drowning it, but we're all in this hidden ecosystem. We're drowning in debt. There are some things to say, and there are some things to say about just wisdom in your finances that would be helpful, that would help you get out from under that. But more than anything else, if you need help financially, will you ask? there's the burden of feeling like I'm in debt, but then there's the burden of feeling like I'm hiding something, and so now I'm not known. You know, we're in a community, like we would love to help each other. Okay, so if you are in a place where you're like, I am in some deep financial burden, you can come to me and talk about it. I've been in times when I felt just underwater in my finances. I know what that's like. I've been there. We would love to help you. And if you're in a place where you're like, I'm in such a rough financial state that I can't buy myself food or something this month. I'm in that rough of a state. Our church has a benevolence fund. And if you talk to me about that, we would love to just give you some money to help you. Right? You can get out from under that in a community like this because we can share with one another what we're actually going through without shame. But then we can say, God's moving in my life in this place and I'm moving towards like wisdom and spiritual growth and health. And you can do that. You can talk to me about that. Okay? If that's going on for you, I would love to hear about that from you and help you. Money is an opportunity to grow spiritually. Money is an opportunity to grow in wisdom. And finally, money, and in particular, giving our money, is an opportunity to remember the truth about money. Giving is an opportunity to remember what's true about money. You know, we give. The Bible's full of all these interesting misunderstandings that people have had throughout time about why we give to God, right? One of my favorites in the Bible is people at different times thought they needed to give to God because God was hungry for their sacrifice, or God is broke. And so God needs your money, right? God's really down and out. And so he needs your cash, right? God doesn't need your money, but you need to be freed from your money. And that's why you should give. We live in a time of intense bitterness and skepticism and distrust of the church. I hope we're about to be done with that, honestly. That's just my own personal opinion. I understand if we're not. So if you are still struggling with that bitterness and skepticism of the church, you don't have to give here. You give somewhere else. But you should give because giving will free you from your money. It will free you from the hold that your money has on you. And you don't need to give everything, but you also need to give more than what you immediately feel comfortable giving. And you know what? If you have trouble discerning what that is for you, you could just do what the Bible says and give 10%. Because 10% is just enough that it hurts. It's just enough that you're like, I've got some great ideas of what I could do with that. It's just enough that it hurts, and so it's just enough for you to learn that you can let go of that and you're going to be fine. And God's going to provide for you, and God's going to care for you, and the things that you actually need in your life cannot even remotely possibly be purchased by that 10%. And you just give it away so that God can teach you that. And you become free. You should give because you need to be free. So find a way to give financially in a way that frees you from the lies about money that money puts in your head. We all want more money. We can never get enough. Money can't even deliver on its own promises. It decays, it corrodes, it's pulling the rug out from under you all the time. It makes you anxious and worried, but more than that, it actually cannot purchase even an iota of the things that are actually valuable in your life. God can do that. God can purchase that for you, and he's done it through his son Jesus. And we have to receive that as the most important currency that we have in our lives. And once we do that, we gain power to live with wisdom in relationship to the money that we have, to give so that we can be free, to live with wisdom and not be constantly churned up by our desires and scraping after money to meet those desires, and to recognize that really at its best, our money can be a place where we grow up with God, that our money can be a place where we grow spiritually, regardless of whether we have much or little in our lives. Amen.